My name is Maren Calloway, 30 years old. Most evenings followed the same script. I left the glass towers of downtown Boston, rode the train home with tired commuters, and unlocked the apartment I shared with my husband, Noah. We had fallen into a rhythm, not exactly exciting, but steady. Joint grocery runs at Trader Joe's, Sunday mornings with bagels and the Times. Our marriage, in my mind, was safe, predictable. But safe doesn't always mean solid. I didn't know that yet. Noah's mother, Gloria, had always hovered like a storm cloud just outside the window. She had a knack for appearing uninvited, sometimes with a container of lasagna as if food softened her intrusions, other times with sharp remarks disguised as care. At Christmas, she asked if I was tired from working so much, her voice laced with a sugary pity. On Easter, she sighed. Still no baby news? You'll want to hurry before your 30s slip away. She never said the word barren, but it lingered between us like the smell of spoiled fruit. I kept the peace, mostly. A smile, a nod, the occasional deflection. Noah called it diplomacy. I called it survival. That Wednesday started with the usual grind. Spreadsheets at the office, lunch at my desk, a train ride that rattled like it was held together by duct tape. When I pushed open our apartment door, though, something was different. The dining table was set. A bottle of Chianti waited uncorked. Candles flickered like nervous hearts. Pasta primavera steamed in the serving bowl, garlic bread on a wooden board, salad glistening with vinaigrette. Noah was sliding plates into place. I dropped my bag with a frown. Did I forget an anniversary? He shrugged, almost too casually. Got home early. Thought I'd surprise you. But it didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like preparation. I hadn't even pulled out a chair when the doorbell rang. My chest tightened. Noah glanced at his watch as though he'd been waiting. Mom's coming by at 8, he said, his voice soft, too soft. She said it's important. Of course she did. 10 minutes later, Gloria swept into our apartment like she owned the deed. Coral lipstick, leopard print shawl, and a perfume that announced her 3 steps before she entered a room. She kissed Noah on the cheek, then looked me over with the kind of scrutiny reserved for stains on expensive rugs. You look tired, she said in lieu of hello. Working late again? I work, I answered coolly, because I like to eat. She laughed too loudly, sliding into the seat at the head of the table as if she'd been born there. I sat across from Noah, already sensing that dinner would taste like ash. The conversation stayed light at first. Her chatter about a friend's daughter, Ashley, who was apparently so poised and so wonderful with children. I chewed my bread slowly, the compliment aimed like a dart at the target of my empty womb. Then halfway through the meal, she dropped it. I'll get right to the point, Gloria said, folding her napkin with crisp precision. Her eyes locked on mine. Maren, I'll pay you $50,000 if you agree to divorce my son. For a moment, the clink of silverware, the hum of traffic outside, the entire world froze. I blinked, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. Noah studied his plate like it was scripture. You've made it clear you don't prioritize family, Gloria continued smoothly, her voice polished with false reason. That's fine, but Noah deserves a chance to start over with someone who does, a real wife. Something sharp burned up my throat. I laughed, but it came out jagged. A real wife? You've been married 7 years. Still no children, she said pointedly. No miscarriages either, I snapped before I could stop myself. Would that have made you feel better? Silence smothered the table. The candles hissed. Noah finally looked up, his face pale. Maren, don't, he muttered. No, let's do this, I said, my voice trembling but fierce. Your mother is sitting here, treating my marriage like a business contract. She's offering compensation, Noah said quietly, almost apologetically. She thinks it's respectful. My gaze sliced across the table. Do you agree with her? He hesitated, and that hesitation was louder than any confession. I've been thinking about it, too. The room tilted. My fork clattered against the plate. Excuse me? I didn't want it to come out like this, he murmured. But Mom, she set up a meeting. An introduction. My heart stuttered. An introduction to whom? Ashley, Gloria inserted, her smile taut. She's very sweet. Traditional. Wants a family. I stared at Noah, waiting for denial, for some sign he was being cornered. Instead, he muttered, She seems nice. My jaw clenched until I felt my molars grind. So you want someone you can mold. Someone younger, more malleable. Someone your mother approves of. Gloria lifted her hand, sharp, like a judge silencing the court. Let's not get emotional. Think about what you could do with the money. A fresh start. Peace. I studied her face, then Noah's, and something inside me hardened like steel cooling in water. The betrayal wasn't in the offer. It was in Noah's silence. Fine, I said, voice cold enough to cut glass. You want out? You're out. But you'll pay every cent you promised, up front, in writing. No contact. No guilt trips. No clawing back when you regret it. Gloria blinked, thrown. Wait, you're agreeing? You thought I wouldn't? I stood, my chair scraping like thunder. If I'd known it only cost 50 grand to get rid of you, Gloria, I'd have made the offer years ago. Noah's lips parted, a protest dying in his throat. But I was already moving, already planning the escape. The meal lay unfinished, the candles guttering, the room heavy with smoke and betrayal. I didn't cry, not then. Instead, I left the table with a kind of icy clarity. They wanted a transaction? They would get one. Because if my marriage was just another deal, then I was about to become the sharpest negotiator they had ever met. The next morning, the apartment felt like a stage after the actors had left. Napkins curled beside the cold plates. The candle wicks were nubs of ash. Gloria's perfume still hung in the air, sweet and cloying, like the last line of a bad play that refused to end. I opened the windows and let January air scrape through the rooms until my fingers went numb on the frame. Then I made coffee, black, and called a lawyer. There is a rhythm to endings that no one tells you about. You answer questions with your practical voice. You send emails that look like invoices. You list assets. You list debts. You list how many pieces of silverware you brought into a life and how many you will take out. The lawyer was efficient, not unkind. She asked if I wanted to fight to stay. I said no. I wanted clarity, not a war of paperwork. She paused, as if to register the quiet in my tone, then moved on to timelines. While signatures and stamps did their work, I moved through our home like a careful thief. I filled boxes in clean columns, books I had bought, mugs that fit my hand, a yellow throw blanket that had warmed me more nights than Noah ever did. I left behind the framed wedding photo on the hallway table. The smiles inside it looked like actors hired to sell a future. Noah and I spoke in monosyllables. He kept his eyes somewhere over my shoulder when we crossed in the kitchen. Please. Thanks. Yes. He always had a way of slipping out of a room right before a conversation could begin. On the third night, I took off my ring and set it on the marble counter. It spun once, then stilled. 2 days later, Gloria made good on her promise. A white envelope arrived by courier, heavy with the compact weight of a cashier's check. No note at first glance. Then I turned the envelope over and found her handwriting in a looping tilt. No hard feelings. You will thank me one day. I stared at the ink until it blurred. The check glowed from inside the paper like a piece of metal pulled from a fire and left to cool. Money has its own temperature. It can burn. It can also freeze. I signed the last of the papers in my lawyer's office and walked out feeling both lighter and oddly off balance, like I had stepped off a boat that was still rocking under my skin. That night I moved into a one-bedroom near my office. The place was small and honest. The hardwood floors were scarred with old lives. The kitchen window looked down at an alley, where a bakery delivered flour at dawn, and the smell of yeast rose through the glass like a promise. I stacked my boxes and made a narrow bed on the couch with the yellow throw. When I switched off the lamp, the silence pressed its palm to my cheek. Not lonely, just silent. The kind that asks who you are without anyone else in the room. I built a routine out of quiet things. I learned which floorboards complained. I learned that the radiator sounded like it was arguing with itself. I made dinner for one and ate it at the counter, watching the lights of the city blink like patient eyes. I bought a cheap plant and told it we would try. On Saturday, I took a walk along the river, hands buried in my coat, mouth sweet with the coffee I had earned by standing alone in a line that no one shared with me. I did not miss Noah. I missed the idea that we had been the kind of people who could have lasted. The divorce finalized faster than I expected. My lawyer called, with the same calm she had used to begin. It is done. I said thank you and meant it. After I hung up, my phone lit with a message from Gloria, a photograph of the cashed check, annotated with a small gold star emoji. Then the words, "Consider us even." I put the phone face down and let the star burn a hole through the wooden table until the light dimmed. 1 week later, my phone woke me before the sun. Unknown number. I declined. It rang again. Another number. Declined. When I stepped into the office, the elevators still humming with first shift, the screen showed a white column of missed calls, 32 by noon, 48 by 2, 56 by the time I refilled my battered water bottle and sat down at my desk. Most were from Gloria, a few from numbers with area codes I did not recognize. I turned the phone to silent and buried it in my bag. The world can claw through fabric when it wants to. At 3:12, a voicemail arrived. I did not intend to listen. I pressed play anyway. Gloria's voice cracked through static, high and uncontained, like water seething in a lidded pot. Maren, call me back, please. It is urgent. We need to talk about the money, about Ashley. Everything is going wrong. The word wrong dragged across the recording, like a chair across tile. Then the message cut off. I replayed it once, then again. The name Ashley stuck like a seed behind a tooth. A friend's daughter, poised, good with children, traditional. My stomach tightened with the memory of candles and pasta cooling under her mother's pronouncements. I powered the phone down. I told myself it was for my peace. I told myself I did not owe anyone a rescue. I told myself a dozen reasonable things, and for a while they worked. I finished a report. I built a chart that sang in clean lines. I answered colleagues with the competence that had survived every storm so far. When dusk fell against the office windows like a gray coat, I packed my bag slowly and waited until the floor was almost empty. Boston air met me sharp and metallic at the building's revolving doors. I stepped onto the sidewalk and stopped. Gloria stood under the awning like a statue that had wept its paint away. Her coral lipstick had bled at the edges, and her hair fought the wind in unruly wisps. Next to her, Noah looked thinner than a week should allow. He had the stare of someone who had not slept in beds, only on consequences. A doorman glanced at me with a small, professional mercy. The pedestrians did what pedestrians do. They slowed and quickened in the same breath, eyes tasting the spectacle, then moving on to their own dinners, their own waiting lives. Gloria lifted a hand that trembled. It was not theatrical. It was the tremor of a woman who had run out of lines. "You are ignoring us," she said, voice too loud for the hour. "I have been standing here for an hour." Noah stepped forward, careful, as if approaching a skittish animal. "Maren, please, just 5 minutes." There was a time when the plea in his voice would have pressed the softest part of me. That part felt distant now, a room in a house I no longer owned. I kept the glass doors at my back and the wind at my face. "Not here," I said. Gloria's eyes flashed. "We only need—" "Not here." I tilted my head toward the corner, where a narrow diner's neon sign buzzed above a fogged window. The place had always looked like a postcard in winter. Silver bell on the door, red stools at the counter, coffee poured like gravity, neutral ground, public enough to keep everyone's hands on the table. We walked in a small procession, not speaking. Inside, the air smelled like butter and burned edges, the kind of scent that clings to your hair and your choices. A single waitress in a tired bun nodded us toward a booth by the door. I let Gloria slide in first. I took the seat with the easiest exit. Noah sat across, twisting his wedding band as if it were a dial that could tune us back to another station. The waitress set down water without asking. A drip from the coffee pot ticked against the burner like a metronome, steady and patient. Outside, snow began to unspool from a flat sky, soft and relentless. "Talk," I said, and folded my hands on the table. I did not lean in. I did not soften my mouth. I kept my voice even and my eyes open. Across from me, Gloria glanced at Noah, then at the window, then back to me, as if searching for the safest place to look. Her lips parted. The first word trembled free. Gloria smoothed the edges of her cardigan like she was trying to hold herself together with fabric. Her painted lips quivered before she spoke. "I think we may have acted hastily," she said, voice uneven. "And now, certain things have come to light." I raised an eyebrow. "You mean Ashley, the girl you groomed for your son like a prize horse?" Noah flinched at my tone, but Gloria pressed on, desperation breaking through the cracks of her composure. "She's not what we expected." "Expected?" My laugh was low, bitter. "And what exactly did you expect? A smiling incubator with no opinions and an apron tied at her waist?" Noah's shoulders slumped, his voice small. "She's very sweet." "She's a nightmare," Gloria cut in. then sighed. Maren, we need your help. I barked out a short laugh that startled the waitress a booth away. Now that is new. Gloria's smile twitched, her manicured nails tapping against the table. See, Ashley's mother. She agreed to the match under the condition that Noah stay with them for a trial period. My stomach nodded. Like what, a lease? Don't be dramatic, Gloria snapped. Noah shifted uncomfortably. It was just supposed to be a few weeks, a chance to ease into things. His words dangled in the air like rotten fruit. Ease into what? I demanded. He wouldn't meet my eyes. 3 days in, they had me mowing the lawn, cleaning gutters, cooking dinner for 9. Ashley's brothers, he swallowed hard. They call me man-made. I stared at him, the pieces sliding together into a grotesque puzzle. You're serious. Gloria flushed. Apparently, Ashley's family took it literally. Her mother said it was a fair trade, her daughter for help around the house. The room seemed to spin. You sold your son into domestic labor? Watch your tone, Gloria hissed, her old authority flickering back, but weaker now. It's not like that. I had debts. Ashley's mother offered to cover them if Noah played nice. I thought it would be temporary. I leaned forward, my voice cutting. So let me get this straight. You gave me $50,000 to leave your son, money you didn't actually have, then handed Noah over to a family that treats him like a servant? Gloria stiffened. I thought Noah had savings. My pulse pounded in my ears. I turned sharply to him. You let her believe that? Noah looked down at his hands. I showed her the joint account. I froze. Our old joint account? He nodded faintly. The one I filled, the one I drained after the divorce. My voice cracked with fury. You used the empty shell of my money to prop up your new future? His face burned red. He couldn't look at me. Gloria blinked fast, shaking her head. But there was a balance. I saw it 6 months ago. There was, I spat. Because of me, and you treated it like it was his, like it was yours to trade. Silence blanketed the table, broken only by the clink of ice in water glasses. I leaned forward, my voice low and sharp. Let me make this clear. That money was mine. The 50 grand you gave me, consider it severance pay. Gloria's hand twitched against her necklace. But Maren, if we can just undo this... No, I cut her off, steel in my voice. There is no undo. There's you, your debt, and your son, playing house where he's treated like a hired hand. Noah's jaw tightened, shame flickering in his eyes. Before Gloria could speak again, the diner's bell jingled. A young woman stepped inside, shaking the snow from her scarf. Blonde, petite, with eyes too sharp for her age. She stopped cold when she saw us. Her gaze landed on me first, then slid to Noah. Her face paled. You're Maren, she said quietly. Gloria's eyes widened in horror. Ashley! Oh my God! Ashley's voice rose an octave, trembling but clear. You're still married. Noah scrambled up from the booth. Ashley, you didn't have to come. You lied to me, she said, cutting him off. You told me... Her voice shook. You told me it was over, that she was gone. I'm not anymore, he muttered, weak, his eyes darting anywhere but mine. Things overlapped. Her eyes narrowed, icy and accusing. And your mother said I was the dishonest one. The air between us thickened, heavy with truths too sharp to swallow. Ashley turned to me suddenly, her face etched with something I didn't expect. Embarrassment, maybe even guilt. Can I talk to you alone? She asked. Gloria surged forward. Absolutely not. Sit down. But I was already standing, pulling my coat tighter around me. 5 minutes. Ashley's relief flickered across her face. Thank you. We slipped outside into the cold that cut straight through our coats. The diner's neon buzzed behind us, painting the snow a harsh red. Ashley pulled her scarf higher around her mouth and exhaled a shaky cloud of breath. I didn't want any of this, she blurted. Her voice cracked like thin ice. My mom pulled me into it. My arms crossed instinctively. Pulled you into what exactly? She hesitated, twisting her gloves. She owed Gloria, some shady investment deal that went bad. Gloria offered me to Noah as payment, a promise. I blinked, bile rising. She made it sound like Noah had money, stability, that you'd have a future with him. Ashley nodded, eyes shining with shame. But when he moved in, it flipped. My mom turned him into a houseboy. She said it would teach him humility, but it was never marriage. It was repayment. I stared, the snow stinging my lashes, so I wasn't replaced. Ashley's lips curved bitterly. He was repossessed. For a second, against my will, I almost laughed. The absurdity of it cut deeper than the cruelty. Ashley let out a breathless laugh too, then sobered. I'm sorry, Maren. For whatever it's worth, I didn't know about you. I don't want to be part of this circus anymore. I studied her, searching for deception. There was none. She looked not like a rival, but another victim, tangled in Gloria's web. Inside, through the fogged diner window, I could see Gloria slumped over her coffee, her painted nails trembling against the mug. Noah pinched the bridge of his nose, shoulders hunched. Ashley's breath puffed in the air between us. They've suffered enough, she murmured. Then her gaze met mine, steady now. Unless you think they haven't. I didn't answer, not yet, because deep down I knew this wasn't just about a marriage anymore. It was about justice, and they weren't finished paying. Snow crunched under our boots as Ashley and I walked back toward the diner. She kept her scarf pulled high as though hiding from the world, but her eyes were fierce, the eyes of someone who had decided she was done playing by someone else's script. Inside, the neon buzz cast the room in hard pink light. Gloria looked up when the bell rang, her expression curdling the moment she saw Ashley beside me. Oh, wonderful, she sneered. You brought her back. Ashley's eyebrow arched with unexpected steel. You're the one who lured me here like I was some prize at a rigged carnival game. Noah stared at his hands. He didn't defend his mother, but he didn't defend Ashley either. His silence was a betrayal all its own. We slid back into the booth. I chose the seat near the door again, still calculating escape routes. Ashley didn't sit. Instead, she pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over the screen. Mom, she said, pressing dial, her voice steady. Can you talk? Gloria reached for her arm. Ashley, don't. Ashley's jaw tightened. I need you to say this out loud. She flicked her eyes toward me, and then Noah, on speaker. The line clicked, then a woman's brisk voice spilled through the tiny speaker. Ashley? What now? Ashley's hand trembled, but her tone stayed calm. You didn't tell me Noah was married when all this started. Well, he's not now, is he? Came the careless reply. My pulse hammered. Gloria closed her eyes, face pinched. And you told me he had money, Ashley continued, voice rising. Savings. Stability. He did, her mother snapped. Gloria showed me the account. I barked a sharp laugh. An account I built, one I emptied before they tried to cash in. Silence stretched across the line. Ashley's mother finally sighed. So, we were doing him a favor. Your husband needs humility. Turning him into a butler for a while is hardly cruel. Hardly cruel, Ashley's voice cracked. You treated him like an indentured servant. That isn't marriage. That isn't even decency. Don't be dramatic, dear. The man wasn't doing much else with his life. Noah's head dropped into his hands. His cheeks flushed crimson. Gloria pinched the bridge of her nose like the world was conspiring against her. Ashley's thumb jabbed the screen, ending the call. Her chest rose and fell quickly, as though she'd run miles without moving an inch. Yeah, she muttered. I'm done. With the arrangement, with the debt games, with the lies. She turned sharply toward Gloria. My mom's out. No more repayment, no more favors. You're on your own. Gloria's voice sharpened, shrill with panic. We had a deal. No, Ashley snapped back. You had a manipulation, and you got caught. Her words hung heavy in the diner's air, louder than the clatter of dishes, louder than the hum of the coffee pot. For once, Gloria had no retort. Ashley looked at me then, her shoulders stiff but her eyes soft. I think you're the only one here who knows how to make a clean exit. She gave me a small nod, respect, recognition, then walked out into the snow without another word. The bell jingled behind her, leaving the three of us in the booth like survivors after a storm, surrounded by debris. Gloria fumbled with her necklace, the chain catching on her trembling fingers. Maren, you have to understand. I never meant for this to spiral. I just wanted what was best for my son. I turned slowly, pinning her with my stare. By lying to everyone involved? By dragging your son into servitude because you couldn't pay your own debts? Noah lifted his head suddenly, his voice rough. Don't put this all on her. Gloria blinked in surprise. Noah. She told me to go, and I went, he said flatly. I agreed. I stayed. I thought, his voice faltered, I thought maybe it was better than staying married to someone who didn't need me. His eyes flicked to me, searching for something. Regret. Recognition. Forgiveness. My throat tightened, but I forced my voice steady. You wanted admiration, Noah, not a partner. That's not a husband. That's a performance. He winced like the words had landed in his ribs. Gloria rushed to fill the silence, her voice shrill again. We can reset. All of us. Give back the money. Start fresh. This never has to have happened. I let out a laugh so sharp it startled even me. Reset? You mean refund the divorce? Like I'm a broken appliance you want to return? Gloria's face hardened. You're twisting this. No. I leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. You twisted this the moment you slid that check across the table. You tried to buy me out like a bad stock. And now that your shiny replacement turned out to be a boomerang, you want to undo it all? Her lips trembled, but no words came. The waitress refilled our waters without asking, eyes darting nervously between us. She lingered a moment, like she wanted to say something, then retreated behind the counter. I stood, slipping into my coat. My voice dropped to a quiet, cutting edge. You got what you wanted, and I made damn sure to get what I deserved. Don't call me again. Noah half rose, his mouth opening, but no words came. He sank back down, defeated, a man shrinking inside himself. I turned toward the door, but Gloria's voice cracked across the diner, brittle and desperate. At least pay for the damn coffee. I paused at the threshold, turned my head just enough to let her see the cold smile on my lips. I would, I said softly. But I'm not your daughter-in-law anymore, remember? The bell jingled as I pushed out into the night. Snowflakes caught in my hair, melted against my cheeks. I let the door swing shut behind me, cutting off Gloria's frantic voice. I thought that would be the end of it. But deep down, beneath the relief and the exhaustion, something gnawed at me. I knew Gloria. People like her never let go. And this story, our story, wasn't finished. Snowflakes stung my cheeks as I walked away from the diner, but footsteps followed, crunching behind me. Maren, wait! Noah's voice, thin, frayed. I turned just enough to see him half jogging through the snow, his coat hanging open, hair damp. Gloria trailed several paces behind, clutching her leopard print shawl around her shoulders like armor that no longer fit. Don't, I warned, the words slicing the night. But Noah pressed forward, desperation pulling him closer. Please, just hear me out. I stopped at the corner, the glow of a streetlight washing us both in harsh yellow. Say what you need to say, then I'm gone. He swallowed hard, his breath puffing white in the cold. I thought leaving you meant freedom, that I'd finally prove myself outside your shadow. I raised an eyebrow. My shadow? His eyes darted away, shame flickering. You never needed me, Maren. You had your career, your confidence, your strength. You walked into rooms and owned them without trying. I wanted to be admired, to feel essential, and I never did, not with you. The confession sat between us like a cracked mirror, reflecting everything that had been wrong all along. I let the silence stretch until he squirmed. So instead, you let your mother barter you into servitude, because being needed to clean gutters was better than being loved by someone who didn't worship you. His face flushed, but he didn't deny it. Gloria finally caught up, breath ragged. Maren, don't be cruel. He's admitting his mistake. I turned on her, fury burning through the exhaustion. No, Gloria, he's confessing his weakness. And you... I pointed at her trembling hand, her gaudy rings glinting in the lamplight. You fed it. You told him he wasn't enough with me, and he believed you, because it was easier than facing himself. She stiffened, but her voice pitched higher, pleading. I only wanted him happy. I thought Ashley, her family, could give him what you wouldn't. I laughed, bitter and hollow. What I wouldn't, or what I didn't need him to provide, there's a difference. Gloria's painted lips pressed into a thin line, then softer. We can fix this, all of us. Give back the money, come home, start over, pretend none of this ever happened. Her words hung in the frozen air, absurd in their audacity. I shook my head slowly. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about money, or Ashley, or even Noah. This is about control. You've spent years pulling strings, Gloria, and now the puppet show has burned down. You're trying to gather the ashes. Noah's voice cracked, raw. Maren, please, I miss you. I stared at him, at the man who once held my hand through subway rides and whispered jokes across grocery aisles, at the man who let silence replace loyalty when his mother dangled a prettier, younger option. You miss the version of me who made you feel big, I said finally. Not the woman standing here. You never wanted a partner, Noah. You wanted a mirror. He flinched, the truth landing harder than any slap. For a long moment, no one spoke. Snow sifted down like sifted flour, softening the street, covering footprints that led nowhere. Then I stepped back, my decision solid in my chest. I'm done, for real this time. You can't buy me back. You can't guilt me back. You can't rewrite this. Gloria's eyes gleamed with something desperate, something unhinged. "You'll regret this, Maren. You'll regret walking away." I tilted my chin, meeting her gaze with cold steel. "The only regret I have is not walking sooner." I turned and walked into the snow, my steps steady. Behind me, Gloria's voice cracked against the night, half curse, half plea. Noah called my name once, then again, each weaker than the last. I didn't look back. The days that followed were quiet, almost too quiet. My phone stayed dark. I told myself it was peace, but a coil of unease wound tight in my chest. Because I knew Gloria. She didn't vanish when defeated. She regrouped. At the office, I worked late, trying to outrun the echo of Noah's words. "You never needed me." I told myself that was strength, not failure, but in quiet moments, between reports, between sips of bitter coffee, I wondered if independence had been my shield or my sin. On the third night, I passed by a newsstand near the subway. My eyes snagged on a familiar leopard print shawl in the reflection of the glass. My pulse spiked, but when I turned, the sidewalk was empty. Just a trick of the light, I told myself. Just memory playing games. Still, I hurried home, double-checked the locks, and drew the blinds tight. Saturday morning, I woke to a letter slipped under my apartment door. No envelope, just folded paper, scrawled in Gloria's cursive tilt. "We can still fix this. You don't understand what's at stake." No signature, no address. The words crawled across the page like vines, invasive and suffocating. I crumpled it in my fist and tossed it in the trash. But all day I felt the ghost of it on my skin, like ink that refused to wash away. By Sunday, I knew this wasn't over. Gloria wasn't the kind of woman who surrendered quietly. She was the kind who rewrote endings until they suited her. And that meant my story with them, my so-called family, was far from finished. A week slid by, like a slow bruise. The city thawed a little. The bakery downstairs leaned open its back door, and the smell of warm dough climbed the metal stairs to my window. I started sleeping through the night again, not because my mind was quiet, but because my body finally believed I would not be yanked back into someone else's emergency. The first message arrived on a Tuesday from a number I did not recognize. A woman introduced herself as a former co-worker of Gloria's from an insurance office downtown. Her text was brief, almost clinical. Gloria had been calling around, asking about receptionist openings, saying her ungrateful former daughter-in-law had cleaned her out. There was a screenshot attached, a handful of unreturned calls, the subject line of an email that read "Second Chance." I did not reply. I let the screen dim until the words vanished. On Thursday, a mutual acquaintance who worked at a legal temp agency sent a different kind of update. Noah had applied for part-time data entry. The same Noah who once rolled his eyes at the spreadsheets I built like they were dull puzzles for small minds. The message did not gloat. It simply stated the fact and wished me well. I set the phone face down on the table and stared at the pattern in the wood until it stopped moving. By Friday, I was almost convinced that the worst had already happened and the rest was just echo. Then Ashley wrote. Her text was careful. "Would you like to get coffee near the public garden? No drama. I want to apologize." I watched the words for a moment, waiting for the hook I could not see. She added a second message, as if she sensed my suspicion. I moved out. I need to say it out loud to someone who understands. We met at a small cafe with fogged windows and plants that leaned toward whatever light winter would give them. Ashley stood when I walked in, hands wrapped around a mug, too big for her fingers. She looked younger without the performance of confidence I had first met, and older in the way people do, after a storm has stripped the paint off their lives. "I'm sorry," she said before I could sit. "I should have known, or at least asked more questions. I let my mother make me into a promise she could trade." I sat across from her and studied the apology the way you study a painting up close, looking for brushstrokes that might give away a lie. There weren't any. Just a tired girl trying to start again. "I believe you," I said, "and I'm sorry for the ways you were used. Even if we were pointed at each other, we were standing in the same trap." Her shoulders loosened a fraction. She nodded and stared into her coffee as if there were messages in the steam. "I moved back with a friend," she said after a moment. "I told my mother she can fix her own debts. I told her I'm not a bargaining chip. She said I was ungrateful, that she did it for my future." Ashley's mouth twisted. I told her I'd rather have a future I chose badly than one she chose well. I felt something like relief on her behalf. That sounds like the beginning of a spine. A small smile ghosted across her lips. Noah talks about you, you know. I did not want to ask, but I did. What does he say? She hesitated, then chose honesty. He said being with you felt like standing next to a storm. Not because you were loud, because you were powerful. He said he could feel your gravity, and it scared him. I watched a snowflake dissolve against the glass. Did he say why he left? Ashley nodded. Because he thought you didn't need him. I let the words settle. I had suspected as much, but suspicion is a shadow. Hearing it said plainly sank like a stone. I didn't, I said. The truth was clean. It did not need to apologize. I wanted him. I didn't need him to be bigger than me, to feel like a man. Ashley looked up. That scared him more than anything. Needing admiration is a fragile thirst. We sat with that. People came and went, stamping snow from their boots, asking for oat milk and kindness. Outside, the branches in the garden held their frost like lace. What will you do now? I asked. She exhaled. A little laugh threaded through the breath. I enrolled in night classes. I always wanted to finish school. I'm starting with one course, so I don't scare myself back into quitting. I'm learning how to say no, too. I practiced on my mother last night. It felt like lifting something heavy and realizing it was hollow. Good, I said. Keep practicing. She shifted in her chair. What about you? I'm resting, I answered. And then I'm leaving the city for a few days. No laptop, no schedules. I want to hear my thoughts without other people's voices trying them on. Ashley nodded like she understood. You look lighter. I am, I said. It surprised me to find it true. When we stood to leave, she reached for me, then thought better of the hug she had imagined. Thank you, she said instead, for not making me your enemy. Thank you, I said, for making yourself your own ally. We parted at the door. She turned left, I turned right. We did not look back. The cabin in Vermont waited at the end of a 2-lane road that stitched through long fields and old stone walls. The lake was a sheet of pewter. When I walked inside, the wood complained softly, the way bones do in the morning. I set my single suitcase down and opened the windows even though the air was cold. It smelled like pine and mud and something raw that city air never carries. I breathed and felt my ribs release. The first night, I built a fire that crackled like paper secrets and watched the smoke crawl up the chimney throat. I made soup on the stove and ate it with a spoon that clinked against the bowl in a rhythm I decided to keep. In the quiet, all the voices I had carried began to speak at once. I let them, then told them to take turns. In the morning, I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and sat on the steps with a mug of coffee hot enough to scald my palm. The lake held the sky like a secret it was willing to tell if I waited long enough. I did not think about Noah. I thought about the girl I had been at 23, walking down an aisle toward certainty. I thought about the woman I was now, walking away from a booth in a diner toward myself. There was a time when I believed justice looked like balance sheets and apologies. There was a time when I believed revenge looked like seeing someone else lose what they loved. It turns out neither is the currency I want to live by. The best revenge is not collecting on a debt. It is refusing to live in a ledger at all. I stayed 3 days. I walked the trails behind the cabin and learned the names of trees by the way their bark felt under my hand. I wrote in a journal until the words stopped sounding like arguments and started sounding like prayers. I slept, not to escape, but because the body knows how to honor peace when it finds it. On the last evening, just as the light folded itself down behind the hills, my phone vibrated with a final message. It was not from Gloria, not from Noah. It was from the temp agency contact again. A simple line that said positions filled, no placement. I stared at it, not because I needed the update, but because I had been waiting for a sign that the door had closed. It had. Not with a slam, but with a latch that fit at last. I packed the next morning and drove home. The city looked softer when I came back to it, as if it had been scrubbed in my absence. I carried my bag up the stairs and unlocked my small apartment. The radiator sighed its old complaint. The plant on the windowsill had decided to live. I opened the window, just a little, and the cold slipped in like a friend who knows how to be quiet. I stood in the middle of the room and let the silence lay its hand on my cheek. Not lonely, just mine. For the first time in a long time, I did not feel watched, measured, bargained over. I did not feel like anyone's lesson. I did not feel like anyone's storm either. Power does not always look like thunder. Sometimes it looks like a woman making soup for one and eating it slowly, Because she has time. I took the yellow throw from the back of the chair and folded it carefully on the couch. I placed my keys in a bowl and turned off the phone. The world would keep spinning without my attention. I did not need to check whether Gloria begged, or Noah learned, or Ashley kept her promise to herself. I had my own promises now. I rinsed the mug and set it in the rack to dry. The lake lived in my lungs a little. The bakery downstairs thumped bags of flour onto the alley steps. Somewhere a train pulled into a station and doors opened and closed. People got on and off, carrying their stories like luggage. Mine was simpler now, not empty, just lighter. I chose a book. I chose a song. I chose a life that did not require permission. And then I sat down, in the home I bought with my own quiet, and let the peace I had earned take its seat beside me.